Holy cow, folks. This is not just another headline. This is a turning point in America. So on the West Coast, California has now formally declared a state of emergency after ICE enforcement operations removed 270,000 illegal migrants. Whole communities are shutting down. Sanctuary cities are collapsing into silence. And the same leaders who spent decades encouraging lawlessness, led by none other than Governor Gavin Newsom, are now pretending to be shocked. And at the very same time, all the way across the country in Washington, D.C., federal agents just stormed the Maryland home of John Bolton. Yes, the former Trump national security advisor. You've got FBI agents raiding his door at 7 a.m. this morning, searching for classified documents tied to a leak investigation. Guys, it is total chaos in California and a complete crackdown in Washington, D.C., all unfolding at the same time. Now, think about the contrast for a second, right? So one part of America is completely paralyzed by the weight of its own bad policies, and the other part, it's seeing law and order restored right inside the swamp itself. So I want to go ahead and start in California, because what's happening here in California, it's unlike anything we've seen in modern history. If you appreciate the news updates, please take a second, hit the like button for the video. Thank you so much, guys. Huntington Park, Santa Ana, and other California cities, they now look like ghost towns. Half the population's hiding indoors, shops with gates that are pulled down, sidewalks are completely empty, street vendors are gone. People and places that once thrived off cheap labor and sanctuary city protections, they're now barren wastelands overnight. And who do local officials blame? Jonathan Sanabria. He's a city councilman, says it's all racial profiling. Guys, he went on to say that ICE is targeting communities like his because of how people look. But critics say he's missing the point. When nearly 45% of your city is undocumented, it's not profiling. It's just called enforcing the law. California leaders, and most of all, Gavin Newsom, never prepared for this moment. They invited this collapse by allowing sanctuary policies to define their state. And now, with tens of thousands of workers gone, businesses shuttered, and residents afraid to leave their homes, the governor has no choice but to declare an emergency. But of course, here's the kicker. If half your population wasn't supposed to be there in the first place, then who's really responsible for this disaster? The people enforcing the law, or the politicians like Gavin Newsom who built an economy on lawlessness? Now, folks, of course, this is just the beginning, because while California scrambles to pick up the pieces, the economic fallout, it's about to hit pretty hard. We're talking job losses in the hundreds of thousands, businesses collapsing, and entire communities realizing that their growth was built on a lie. But here's the bigger question here. Here's the bigger question. What happens when sanctuary policies backfire so badly that the very people that they claim to protect are the ones who are suffering the most? Now, let's talk about the economic fallout, because, folks, it's not just empty sidewalks and shuttering storefronts, guys. The numbers are jaw-dropping. Analysts estimate 271,000 citizens will lose their jobs as a direct result of this enforcement action, and another 193,000 non-citizens on top of that. So that's nearly 500,000 positions suddenly disrupted. But of course, here's a twist. Were those jobs really lost, or were they finally freed up for real Americans who were pushed out of the workforce for decades? I don't know. Think about it, guys. These businesses, from restaurants to equestrian centers, they relied on cheap, off-the-books labor, paying them under the table. They cut corners. They underpaid. They ignored the law. And now the entire system is collapsing under its own weight. And so take the Los Angeles Equestrian Center as one example. Entire crews of workers fired in a single day because they couldn't prove their legal status. Now, at first glance, you would think, wow, they got no workers left. Okay, but if these jobs were really vital, they'll be filled pretty quickly. This time here by actual Americans rather than the illegals that were working there or undocumented workers. So now real Americans and legal residents who were denied a fair chance for years may actually be able to land a job for the first time in a long time. And it's not just the workers. Landlords, shop owners, entire neighborhoods profited off of this underground economy. Illegal immigrations kept wages down, rent prices inflated, businesses artificially thriving. And so now, with ICE finally enforcing the law, the scaffolding is gone, and what's left behind is a state scrambling, trying to survive. Now, let's be clear. This collapse isn't an accident. It's not a natural disaster. It's not an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado or anything like that. It's self-inflicted. Gavin Newsom and California's leadership built an entire economy on a foundation of lawlessness, and now the bill is due. Now, if I asked you to rate your confidence in your Medicare plan, would you give it a 10 out of 10? Most people can't. And the ones who are honest usually admit, I don't know if my plan really even has me covered. This is why I partner with Chapter. They walk you through a free review, completely free from my viewers, and they give you answers that your plan never will. Take Leslie Taylor, for example. She went from guessing to knowing, saving $1,000 in the process. Huge, right? Sharon Bertusik, she went from being dropped to finally feeling secure again. I love it. So let me ask you guys, how much longer are you willing to just wonder? Most people are done guessing. They're calling the number on the bottom of your screen right now, and they're just simply asking Chapter, hey, Ron told me to call you. I just want to know, am I on the best plan? And how much money can I save? Phone number's down below, 909-563-8279, or you can visit them at askchapter.org/Ron. But while California is it's in the worst state. I mean, California, man, Gavin Newsom, he has done a number on that state. Oh my God. And he's trying to run for president in 2028. So while California is collapsing, there's another side of the story that just does not get enough attention. And this is the restoration of law and order, because here's really where the media, this is what the media is not going to tell you. Okay. ICE doesn't need a judge's warrant to do its job in these cases. I mean, like, under federal law, immigration officers, they have the authority to arrest fugitives and aliens without a judicial warrant. And when ICE shows up at these sanctuary strongholds, they're not coming for random families on the street. They're actually coming for criminals, violent offenders, gang members, fugitives who thought that they could just hide behind Gavin Newsom's policies. But for years, sanctuary cities have tied law enforcement's hands. Local police were forbidden to cooperate, forbidden to even call ICE when they had someone dangerous in custody. So what happened? Well, criminals with rap sheets longer than the CVS receipt, they were let loose onto the streets again to blend back into the communities, to exploit benefits, to build networks. Now, under President Trump, the era is over, okay? The administration is not apologizing. It's not backing down, and it's not buying into the left's narratives that enforcing immigration law is somehow cruel. No, it's about saving communities before they implode. And this is exactly what's happening today. And so, folks, if you think what ICE is doing on the streets of California is shocking, wait till we get into what happened at 7 a.m. this morning in Bethesda, Maryland. Because while California is collapsing, the FBI is storming the home of one of Trump's most infamous former advisors, John Bolton. And what they're looking for right now could blow the lid off the entire swamp. So while California declares an emergency on the East Coast, we've got the swamp just getting rattled, guys. At 7 a.m. sharp this morning, FBI agents stormed the Maryland home of John Bolton. Yes, the very same Bolton who served as Trump's national security advisor just before stabbing him in the back with a tell-all book deal. Unbelievable. So agents were there looking for classified documents that were tied to a leak investigation. And so here's what's really notable about this, all right? John Bolton was not arrested, but the fact that the Bureau showed up with a judge-signed warrant tells you that this isn't just a fishing expedition, okay? Matter of fact, I wouldn't be shocked if John Bolton got arrested next week. Attorney General Pam Bondi, she had to sign off. DOJ had to sign off. A federal judge had to sign off as well. So this means the evidence to justify this raid is completely real. It's completely legal. It's completely legit. And let me remind you folks, this ain't even the first time that we've seen something like this. I mean, remember the pre-dawn raid of Roger Stone in Florida? You guys remember the Mar-a-Lago raid back in August of 2022? This is that was actually something that the media still tries to defend to this day. And so both of those were about these so-called classified documents, right? And so now here we go again. Only this time it's John Bolton at the center of the storm. It's crazy, right? Amazing how the tables turn. So the question is, why Bolton? Why John Bolton? Why now? Well, let's rewind for a second, okay? So John Bolton was one of Trump's loudest critics after he left the administration. He cashed in on this massive, lucrative book deal that Trump said violated his NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and revealed classified information. So a probe started while Trump was in office, but surprise, surprise, when Biden took over, all of a sudden the whole thing was dropped. I wonder why they did that. Yeah, swept under the rug, forgotten about, right? That's over now. President Trump's back in the White House and the investigation is now back on. And it's not just about the book. In fact, earlier this year, Trump and DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, stripped Bolton of his security clearances because they were also concerned that he still had access to sensitive materials that he should not have had access to. So even John Bolton's taxpayer-funded security detail, originally assigned because of Iranian threats, that got pulled. So if he needed protection, he'd simply have to hire it privately and pay out of his own pockets. So let's go ahead and put this all together. So John Bolton, stripped of clearances, Bolton accused of leaking, Bolton under fresh investigation, and now Bolton's front door just got hit by the FBI before sunrise. Crazy what's going on in DC right now. But here's the real question. Is Bolton just the beginning? Because whispers in DC are saying that this investigation may reach way beyond John Bolton into some of the same names that dominated the headlines years ago. James Comey, James Clapper, John Brennan. Whole lot of J's there. Matter of fact, every one of those people, their first name starts with a J. Isn't that odd? So are these dominoes about to fall? So now here's where things get even more explosive, because this John Bolton raid isn't happening in isolation. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of chatter that's going on that the Justice Department and their net is widening, not just over Bolton, but over some of the biggest names in the swamp. Guys, I'm talking about James Comey, the disgraced former FBI director, okay? James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, and John Brennan, the former CIA director. Now, remember those names, right? Real quick, how many of you guys do remember those names? Anyway, these were the very same people who pushed phony narratives, leaked classified material, and undermined Trump at every turn during his administration. And so now, with Trump back in the White House, the game has changed. What was ignored under Biden is now fair game. And if Bolton's home raid is the first domino, well, question is, how many more doors are about to be knocked on or kicked down at 7 a.m.? I'm just saying. But I want to zoom out just for a second, because while Washington is bracing for a potential swamp-wide reckoning, California is still reeling. That's right, guys. Over on the West Coast, sanctuary cities are in free fall. On the East Coast, insiders like John Bolton, they're finally facing federal scrutiny. So this is the parallel right here, folks. Chaos in California, accountability in Washington. California is learning that you just can't build an economy on illegal labor without consequences. Washington is learning that you can't abuse classified information and weaponize leaks without consequences. And so who's behind these reckonings? President Donald J. Trump, decisive, unapologetic, and clearly not afraid to do what weak leaders before him refused to do. Now, on the one side, he's restoring order at the border, but on the other side, his Justice Department is sending a message to the elites. No one is above the law, not even former insiders like John Bolton. But this kind of raises the ultimate question. Is this the beginning of a long overdue reckoning? Are we about to witness the collapse of sanctuary strongholds and the exposure of swamp elites in one sweeping moment? Well, here we are, folks. Two massive crises, one nation, one president that's willing to confront both head on. Now, on the West Coast, you got Gavin Newsom's California completely scrambling under its own weight. Entire towns emptied out, businesses shuttered, an economy exposed as a fraud is built on these sanctuary policies and illegal labor. Newsom can declare all these, he can declare all these emergencies all he wants, really. But the truth is, this is the bill finally coming due for decades of lawlessness. Now, on the East Coast, the swamp is shaking. You got John Bolton's home raided this morning, his past decisions finally catching up to him. And if John Bolton can be targeted, if Bolton can get put under the microscope, then every single insider who thought that they were untouchable, they ought to be sweating right now, because this administration, it's made it very clear. Nobody gets a pass. That's the contrast. California collapses under weak leadership, while Washington sees accountability under strong leadership. The same day, the same America, one half is suffering from the consequences of betrayal, the other half finally tasting the return of law and order. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave you with this, guys. Is this just the start of a long overdue reckoning? Are we watching the beginning of a moment where both the sanctuary cities and the swamp elites are forced to face the reality that they've been running from years? Because if today is any indication, August 22nd, 2025 may go down in history as the day that the tide turned. Hit the like button, subscribe, share this video. YouTube thinks you're going to really enjoy the video that's about to pop up on your screen right here. Click that video and I'll see you on the other side. Hey, by the way, guys, if you're one of the real ones who really enjoy what we do here on the channel, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below.